So in this slide, we are doing the diamond puzzle. So the first thing you want to do is your A value, which is 3, and your C value, which is 8. So 3 times 8 gets you 24. And then you write down your B value, which is the coefficient of X. So we find that right here. Now we need two numbers that multiply to get 24 and add to get 10. So I recommend writing your list down. 1 times 24 doesn't work because that adds to 25. 2 times 12 doesn't work because it adds to 14. 3 and 8 does not work because that adds to 11. However, 4 and 6 work because 4 times 6 is 24 and add to get 10. So we can check our answer and we know that we did it right. Here, 7 times 4 is 28. Our B value is 16. So let's do 1 times 28. 1 times 28 gets me 28, but it adds to get me 29. What about 2 times 14? 2 times 14 gets me 28. Yes, this adds to 16. So 2 and 14 are going to be my left and right factors. 8 times 5 is 40. Then we have 22. We can check 1 times 40 does not work because that gets us 41. 2 times 20, yes, that gets me 40, and it adds to get me 22. So those are my two numbers. Now for the next slides, we're going to find the GCF. I'm going to write it up on this screen. However, you please write it below where you have space. My first term is a negative, so I know I have to divide out a negative. The greatest common factor for the numbers is a negative 2. And then you want to look at each term. We have x to the third, we have x squared, and we have x. All of our terms have a variable. So we want to write that variable down and look at the smallest exponent. The x to the first power wins because that is the smallest exponent of that variable. So together, the greatest common factor is negative 2x. Now, if you actually divide the negative 2x out, negative 6x to the third divided by negative 2x gets you 3x squared. We divide the coefficients, we minus the exponents. 14x squared divided by negative 2x gets you the negative 7 minus the exponents, which is just x. And then our last term in the trinomial, negative 20x divided by negative 2x, gets you a positive 10. So I ran out of room. This plus 10 should really be in the parenthesis. I just couldn't write small enough. Sorry, guys. There we go. So let's check our answer in the table. So we have 3x squared minus 7x, 10. Now the true answer, or factored form, is negative 2x, 3x squared minus 7x plus 10 in parentheses. And remember, you can always check your answer if you go back. Negative 2x times 3x squared gets me what's inside the box. Negative 2x times negative 7 gets me in the box. And then negative 2 times 10 gets me the negative 20x. Now, this one I gave you because I want you to be careful. A lot of you know that the greatest common factor for this would be 4, because I can divide 4 evenly for each of the numbers, the integers. However, some of you want to say 4x. You have to be careful. We have an x squared here. We have an x, but the 8 does not have a variable. Since our last term is without a variable, we cannot divide one out. So here, the greatest common factor is just the integer of 4. And then we can divide. 4x squared divided by 4 is just x squared. 16x divided by 4 gets you 4x. 8 divided by 4 just gets you a positive 2. And then our final answer is 4, parentheses, x squared plus 4x plus 2. So once again, it looks like our greatest common factor involves a 4. You can always use the GCF calculator to get that. It's going to be a positive 4 because our 12 is positive. However, if you look at each term now, each term has a variable. So then we are allowed to look at the smallest exponent of that variable, which this case would just be 4x. And then we divide the bases and minus the exponents. So when we minus the exponents for the first term, it's going to be x squared. We have minus 8x. And once again, my favorite part, when it's x over x, just goes away. And the same with 2 terms. Here, the greatest common factor of the bases of the integers is 3. And then we look for the z squared. I chose z squared because both terms had a variable z. And then the squared is the smallest exponent that there was. Divide. And then subtract the exponents. So z squared divided by z squared actually goes away. So I have to erase that. So here my greatest common factor was 3z squared. Z squared minus 6. So our monomial times our binomial is going to be our factored form. Oh, I wrote it wrong, huh? It should be z to the 5th. I apologize, I couldn't read my own handwriting, and then z to the 5th here. All right, cool. All right, greatest common factor for this one is going to be negative 5, y to the 3rd. And each term has negative 5y to the 3rd. Remember, your calculator is going to tell you it's a positive 5, but since our leading coefficient is negative, GCF has to be negative. So negative 5y to the fifth divided by negative 5y to the third. Divide the bases, subtract the exponents. So then this is 6y to the third. Sorry, my pen skipped out, so that should be a 3, that should be a 3. 4 minus 3 is just y. And then this is a negative 8. Be careful with your sign. Positive divided by negative is negative. All right, so for this one, we're going to find the product. So this is a binomial times a trinomial. Remember, trinomial is 3 terms. And to get into the area model, we need to multiply the length times width. We need to add the exponents. So x times x is just x to the third, because we multiply 1 by 1 and then add the exponents. This gets us negative 13x squared, 6x, 5x squared, because 5 times x squared is just 5x squared. Now for the bigger numbers, if you're not sure, that's why we have this calculator available. Negative 13 times 5 gets you negative 65. And that is just x. And then 30. So at this final moment, you need to combine like terms. When you combine like terms, you do nothing to the exponents. So we have x to the third minus 12x squared. Do nothing to the exponents when we're adding. If you're not sure, negative 65 plus 6 gets you a negative 59. X, and then plus 30. So negative 13 plus 5 is my error, so it should be actually negative 8. So always double check, always use a calculator if you need to. Now it does not matter where you put the binomial as long as you put the minus 9 with the 4x. And then this 4x gets the plus 7. So 4x times 4x gets you 16x squared. This gets you 28x, negative 36x, and then negative 63. So the only like terms here are our diagonals. That gets us negative 8x, and then minus 63. Remember, the only work that we need to see is either in the calculator or you show us right there. And then lastly, this is a monomial, 1 term, times a trinomial. Negative 9 times 7 is negative 63. Add the exponents when you're multiplying the same base. Be careful here, this is a 27, positive 27, x to the 4th. And then this gets you negative 36x to the 3rd. It's already in standard form for you, highest exponent, which means the biggest exponent.